Hello, I'm William Jamar,
And I'm Hattie.
and this is our podcast, HattieJo.
And this is our baby girl, Winona, Sarah, right? Yay!
Yes. So Winnie is finally here. This is our first podcast as officially parents on with a baby on the outside.
Yes.
So, yeah, our first podcast since having little Winnie, and we are going to just talk about being new parents and how it's going and having a little baby girl here with us.
Yeah, and she's 6 weeks old already. So she's just growing and growing. I'm gonna set her back a little bit. She loves to look at the fan. We've got the fan going. But yeah, parenthood so far, so good. We've got our baby is alive.
Yes, and that's the most important part.
So what has been, what was kind of going through your mind that first time that we're at the hospital, the baby's been born? What kind of was going through your mind?
Oh, so what was going through my mind was just, I honestly was just like, finally she's here. You kind of like, I honestly was nervous about like the delivery process and like how that would go and like if a C-section was going to be needed and things like that. So like, I was just more worried about like the birthing process. I felt like once we got through the birthing process, everything would be fine.
Yeah, and your stress kind of
Yeah, but like the whole birthing process was a little, just like uncertainty of like how it's gonna go and like if complications were gonna arrive, like what would need to be done and things like that. But like once we got through the birthing process, like it kind of went fairly quickly at the hospital from when they gave you like some medicine to kind of induce the labor. And so it was like once you got here, it was just kind of, all right, now we get to let's get her home and kind of get our routine going.
Yeah.
And
routine.
Yeah. So what
a joke.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
Well, kind of like you said, just because birth is so unpredictable, right? My mom's had 4 births. Every single one was vastly different from all the others. For instance, and I know you've heard this story 100,000 times, but I was born in the car on the way to the hospital. So it just shows you, the range of things that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, totally unpredictable. So, and it's my first time, right? Like, I think whether we had a bad experience or a good experience, if we had an experience to kind of set
expectations, or just like this is kind of what it's gonna be.
Or because it was even to the point of like we go to the hospital and it's like, well, where do we go, right? Remember, I was like, I think we can go this way, and you're like, well, we can also just go this way, and it's all the little things. There's just so many of these things, right? So I was a little apprehensive too, and of course it's like, well, this is supposed to be painful. Like that's never it's never like, hooray, pain. But honestly, I was so grateful for that epidural. My God, thank the Lord. Whoever invented those really did me a solid. But once she was finally born, it was kind of the same of like, I'm just so excited she's here. I had been anticipating, growing this little one for 9 months, just like thinking about how things would be and what she'd be like, and for her to finally be here and someone I could cuddle on the outside, get some baby snuggles. I was just very relieved and very much in awe. Like everyone talks about, oh, you don't really know love until you have a child and all this stuff, and it was definitely a different type of love, but I was just so, I don't want to say overwhelmed, because I wasn't like overwhelmed, but I was overcome with emotion and just feeling so much love and joy and amazement at life, like crazy. Like this whole thing is crazy. And so I was on cloud 9, honestly. Yeah. So that was kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and so we kind of got her home, and then like your mom and dad, Scott, were here, and like they were here the week before, and then like we had
The weekend, right? Because
The
they
weekend.
came on a Saturday and she was born on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yes. And then they got to that weekend, and then they had a wedding that they were going to, so they left. And then we had like, I wouldn't say like for me it wasn't much of a scare, but we did take her into the doctor.
Yeah. I'm gonna start to feed her. Okay.
And so that was interesting to like. We had kind of like a little like a 12-hour window of like no bowel movement, and so we were a little bit worried there. And so we took her into
especially because it's Arizona and super hot. That's at least that for me was part of it too.
Yeah, and so for me, I was just like, it's a little worrying. I wasn't necessarily like, I was honestly thinking maybe we should give it until the morning, but I did understand like wanting to take her that night.
Right.
I wasn't like, I made sure not to say that because I don't think that would have went over well.
No,
like,
I would have just been more stressed and feeling like now I'm already concerned and I have to convince someone else of my concern. Like, thank you for doing me a solid and just being like, we're gonna roll with it.
Yeah. And it was funny because we called the pediatrician's office. They have like after hour times, and so we called them, and they were just like, yeah, like it's probably a good idea to take her in, and so we took her in, and the whole process like of getting there, we got checked in, and then we got checked out by this nurse. He looked like he was definitely a newbie, and he didn't really know what he was doing.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, but that was fine. Like it just seemed like he was like, it was definitely one of his first few times like doing this process. I wouldn't say he did like a bad job or anything. It was just very clear that he wasn't the most confident person.
Well, and she was literally 2 days old, right? Because my parents left Friday through Sunday.
Yeah,
and we were in the Friday night because she was born on Tuesday.
Born on Tuesday. We stayed through Wednesday night. We got here Wednesday, or we came home Thursday.
Yeah, it was technically Thursday, like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And then Thursday was fine, and then I think it was Friday evening that we went to the ER because my parents were not here.
Yeah.
So she was 2 days old, like 3 days old, very young. I can't even do math right now, but super tiny, new baby.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not a common, like even if he did have experience as an ER person, probably minimal experience with a baby that small.
Yeah, but it was very clear, like he was very new. And so we actually got back to the children's hospital.
Yeah.
And we went back to the room, and I feel like the doctors and the nurses there, they did a good job of calming everything down and kind of letting us know like this is normal. Because I feel like there was a little bit of an expectation of, oh, like these are the things that will happen. And definitely the doctor said like, hey, like they should be using the restroom these amount of times. And like these are the norms that you should look for. And like once those norms didn't happen, I think it kind of set some alarms and bells off that, hey, something might be wrong. But once I think, what did they put on the
So my favorite part of the whole experience, this is what he's talking about, which obviously everything turned out totally fine. There was nothing wrong. It was a complete false alarm. Otherwise it wouldn't be funny. But they gave us a sheet. They give you a little handout of like, here's your diagnosis, here's more information, here's the follow-up instructions. Our diagnosis was worried well.
Yeah.
Like new parents, and they did good at worrying, like better safe than sorry, bring it in if you have questions, but like nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
And I texted my parents, I texted my sister-in-law, because everybody knows I have like anxiety. So pretty much I'm an expert in worrying. And I'm like, look, see, someone has finally acknowledged, like I worry well. God. So yeah.
And so
She
yeah,
was fine.
yeah, she was definitely like, she was fine, and we kind of like, there's kind of a process through which like, even because we have like diapers that show like, hey, is there like pee in there, like has she urinated, and kind of like, even like as long as there's bowel movement, I think that's the biggest thing that like the doctors kind of look for.
Right.
And
having plenty
like
of bowel
when you're
movements.
at the, yeah, and when you're at the like, when you're at the doctor's office, they say you need to look for like this amount of certain like pees and like poops, but like the pediatrician, when we went back for like the ER visit, they're like, even if the line isn't blue, there's probably some urination in there, so like don't overreact too much.
Right. And she said it'd be like at age, 1 through 5 days, my milk's still coming in. So if she's nursing, she's getting colostrum, which is, she only gets a teeny tiny amount, right? And so there's just not that much fluids going through her.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why the doctor's like, it's easy to miss that she might have urinated actually.
Yeah. But that's not to say like, if you are a new parent and you do feel like, hey, maybe like definitely take the baby in and get him checked. Like, I would say that more than anything, it will help like ease any tensions or like frustrations or like any anxious feelings.
Yeah, it's much better to worry well than to wait and have an actual problem.
Yeah.
If you think something's wrong. So yeah. But yeah, so that was, classic new parent freak out, which I thought was kind of funny that, because I was so sure, I have all these books, like this American Academy of Pediatrics book on caring for your child. I haven't cared for like a newborn 24/7 before, but I've babysat small infants, I have nephews and nieces. I feel like, and I have tons of friends that have children, and we talk about things. I felt like I had some expectation of like, I can do this. This will be fine. I'm probably not going to have a major crisis. But yet here we are still, like, I thought there was a major crisis and everything was totally fine. So yeah, crisis averted.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so we've kind of just been getting into our little routine. And she's like, Hattie's been off from work and she's gonna be off from work. I've had like little bitty like summer camps and like basketball camps and like workouts that I've been going through where I leave for like 1 or 2 hours, maybe 3 hours a day during the weekdays, and just trying to make sure I try to like, I feel like for me it's a little bit different because like she's not nursing for me, so there's very little that I can do in terms of if she's crying. If we have a bottle, then I can help with that. But like outside of with the times when we do want to give her a bottle, anytime she needs to feed, she has to be given to mama.
Right. So you've been amazing though at like just no questions asked, not even me prompting you. It's like, oh, it's time for a diaper change, and you'll just like go take her and do her diaper. Yeah. Or like, oh, I just need to eat my dinner, can you hold her for a little bit? Like, he stops whatever he's doing and he does what needs to be done. He's very good at calming her down when she's like in a tizzy, and I'm like, I fed her a bunch, we've changed her diaper, nothing, she doesn't seem to be gassy, like gone through all the list of things that could be wrong. And so, yeah, I think you're doing great. And you're doing a great job of taking care of me, too. Like, I remember we were having the newborn pictures, and I was so busy, like, trying to do my hair and get ready to look nice in these pictures, get her to look nice. It was, like, the photographer came at 2 p.m., and I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast at, like, 6 a.m. or something. And you came up and you had made some pizza, and you, like, gave me the pizza, and you're like, here's something to eat, and I think you did.
I do not remember this at all. Well,
back in the 2-week-old haze.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he does a really good job of making, taking care of all the meals, making a bunch of meals. Anytime I'm like, hey, can you grab me some water? I think you're very good at dropping everything you're doing and just getting me all the things that I need.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's definitely the least I could do. You carried her for 9 months, and you're feeding her whenever she needs to be fed, and so the least I could do is go grab some water or some food here and there.
That's right. But oh man, that was something I did not expect, was how drop dead starving I'd be trying to do the breastfeeding thing.
Mm-hmm.
So hungry, like hungrier than I had ever been in any of the pregnancy, which honestly, looking back on it, I'm like, of course, right? When I'm pregnant, I'm providing all of her nutrition, but A, she's smaller, and B, it's a much more efficient route, like direct from my bloodstream.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I'm still providing or attempting, I think now we're finally there for the most part, but it took a while for me to get my supply and blah, blah, blah. So we were kind of combo feeding, doing a little bit of formula and trying to nurse as much as possible. But even then, it's like I'm providing 95%, of her nutrition, but A, she's a lot bigger. She's growing at a faster rate, and, well, I don't know if it's actually a faster rate, but she's definitely a lot bigger, and it's a less efficient process, right? I have to eat the food, take the energy from the food, make the milk.
Mm-hmm.
She has to get milk delivered to her. There's losses through there, and then her body has to digest. Whereas before it was like already pre-digested by my body and into my bloodstream, right? So like there's all sorts of energetic losses with that system. So it's like I have to eat so much more to just get the same amount of energy to her. But yeah, crazy. I've eaten ice cream every single day. It's glorious. I'm like, this is the best thing. But yeah, she's working on growing.
Yeah.
But she's really starting to be a lot more alert now. I kind of noticed that at about 5 weeks for her. Every baby is different. But she's starting to have periods of time where she's just awake and curious and looking out at the world and interacting with the world, as opposed to those first weeks. I really felt like if she was awake, she was trying to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And if she wasn't trying to eat, she was asleep or like fixing to get there.
Yeah.
So what would you say has been your favorite part of parenthood so far?
I mean, I would just say just holding her. It's kind of neat to see her, like, she makes little faces. And so just seeing those little faces and seeing her when she's calm and like not, like the moments when she's not like, I'm not sleepy and I'm not like hungry. I'm just kind of here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like upset about, or I'm not like fussy, which all babies are fussy, but just the moments where she's just kind of like chilling, relaxed, where I'm either holding her or she's in the crib just relaxing. So those are, I would say, my most favorite parts so far. What has been your most favorite part?
I would kind of say, I echo what you said, like just getting to see her start to interact with the world has been really fun for me. And also, this is going to sound so silly, but she makes, like when she's nursing, well, let me take a step back. Just in general, she's starting to get a lot more control over her limbs, right? They're still out of her control, but she's starting to, wiggle them more and do more things. But she'll like use her arms to like grab onto my shirt, like when I'm nursing her, like, don't you take this away from me. Or like, she'll like use her other little arm and like kind of rub me with like loving little, of course I'm reading into all she's just having random movements, I'm pretty sure, but it feels like, and
there's some intentionality.
Yeah, or that sometimes she'll be crying to get some food. We'll finally get a good latch, and then she'll make these like grunts of satisfaction, like, like you can tell that she's just like, this is what I needed. Yeah. And so it's just makes me feel good to be like, I'm meeting her needs. Like, she's so thrilled right now. So anyway, it's kind of those two things, but I love cuddling her. I mean, if my arms didn't get tired and I didn't know it was good for her development to be in different positions and interact with different things, I'd hold her all the time. Like, people talk about Velcro babies and being like, oh, my baby wants to be nowhere else but on me. I'm like, I want my baby to be nowhere else but on me. It's like Velcro mom. So we might need to work on that as she gets bigger to make sure that she's getting everything she needs for her development. But yeah, so I'm loving all the baby snuggles.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that you were on summer break during this time, overlapping with the first part of my maternity leave. I think that's been really critical to it going as well as it's gone. Mm-hmm. And you know, of course, she just hasn't had a lot of problems either, so that's a huge blessing. Yes. But I feel like it's just been a great bonding time for us as a family of 3.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting, like, because I will head back to, like, orientation, like, work next week. And then the following week after that, we actually start school. And so, like, I will be adjusting to that while you're still here caring for her. And kind of are here with her the majority of, or all day. And so that will be kind of like an adjustment period. And I think we'll have a little time to kind of stay in that mode a little bit before you head back to work.
Right, yeah, agreed. And I think, you know, famous last words, but hopefully by the time I'm heading back to work, we're in more of a routine. Because right now, I would say the only real routine we have is the period at which we give her baths. Just, you know, X number of days. And then also when she wakes up in the morning, the first thing is I try to, after feeding her, changing her diaper, you know, all that stuff, I try to take her outside on our patio, under the patio cover for like 5 minutes. You know, not too long so she doesn't get overheated, but try to get some indirect natural sunlight to set her circadian rhythm. But otherwise, I mean, she'll have weeks where she, you know, sleeps this amount and this is kind of seems to be the pattern, and then in that week there'll be 2 days that are totally off, and then, you know, the next week it's a totally new pattern of like when she's napping, when she's awake, how long she's doing each of these things. So right now I don't feel like there really is a routine. Like, literally. But what do you think?
I would say there's a pretty set routine. Like, she, like, within the day, like, I feel like she has a pretty consistent rhythm. Of course, I'm not here, like, all of the time, but I feel like she has a pretty consistent rhythm in that, like, there'll be, and it's kind of one of 2 things that we'll see. But typically, like, if you start at like 7 p.m., she's normally up from like 7 p.m. until around 11:30 midnight. Yeah. And then she goes to bed. And then on like most nights, she'll sleep until like 2:30, wake up, and then she'll sleep again, like start to go back to sleep again around 3:30 or so. Wake up around 6, and so that will start like a 2-hour, every 2 to 3 hour like feeding, and then it will kind of go till 7 again. So I feel like although like the routine isn't exact every day, I feel like it's kind of gotten into that natural rhythm of around this time, this is what I'm expecting from her.
Yeah, and it is true that she, I will say, bulk sleeps overnight. Like, she rarely has long periods where she's awake overnight where she's not eating. And then I also agree that in the late afternoon through about 11:30 midnight kind of time frame. Amelia, move back, please. Good girl. She's like often just awake the whole time.
Yeah.
That's kind of her fussiest time, I would say. But yeah, I think she's doing good. What do you think, baby? Do you think you're doing good? Do you want to tell everybody? Amelia's like, I want some attention too. Yeah, and our sweet girl Amelia, our puppy is, well, she's not a puppy. She's going to be 10 in August, but or she actually is already 10. She's 10 in February, but she will have been a member of my family for 10 years starting in August. She is feeling very left out these days. But she's doing good. She's always so gentle near Amelia, and she's a little inquisitive, and she hates hearing all the cries, so she doesn't interact too much.
Yeah. She's
move back, please. Move back.
She's still working on. I think once she gets a little bit older, Winnie gets a little bit older, Amelia will be able to like interact with her a little bit more. But just now, she is like, she's always in our hands. Winnie is, and so Amelia feels a little left out at times. Which is understandable because she didn't have to share before.
Right. And she's also a very like affectionate dog.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we had my parents out to help out at the beginning when she was newborn. My dad also came out when she was about 3 weeks old, maybe.
Yeah. Ish. Almost a month.
Almost a month. Yeah. And then your mom's coming in 2 weeks to help us with your transition back to like school as opposed to the teacher work days and stuff.
Yeah, and so my mom will be here for a week, and so it'll be her first time meeting Winnie in person, and so we're very excited about that. And
yeah, we're so grateful for all the help. I mean, especially as this being our first one.
Yeah.
So really grateful that all the grandparents are stepping up and chipping in, and I've just been so shocked at how helpful they all have been. You know what I mean? I think they've all done a really good job of like, I'm not in guest mode, I'm in helping mode, which I was really grateful for. So yeah. Anything else you want to discuss?
No. Well, it's been like we have I would say 2 other family friends that live here in Arizona. And it's been kind of cool to connect with them as they're kind of going through this process as well. And we're all kind of like, we're all in the jungle, but we're all going on like little separate paths through the jungle. And so I think they've been it's been a neat little kind of a connecting point with them as they're kind of going through this process of what's different, what's kind of the same, like where are the commonalities in this process of this jungle that we're all in, and what's kind of like, I'm not having that same type of experience. So that's been really cool, and I think you guys have kind of, as mothers, have kind of created a neat little bond over this as well. So it's been neat to see.
It's been really helpful for my mental health to have just like a sounding board of people be like, yep, that is as frustrating. Like before I had a kid, I would think that's not that big a deal, and now that I'm in the post-birth hormone situation and dealing with this day in and day out, like, yes, that is a big deal. You know, like, just someone to empathize with everything that comes with this process. But we even had brunch today with one of those couples, and it was lovely time. Yeah. And it was our first kind of outing with Winnie for like going out and doing something, as opposed to we're driving to the doctor's or we're coming right home, or like we're driving to Walgreens to pick up a prescription and we're coming right home. You know, our first kind of outing for enjoyment, I would say.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
So it was really great, and I'm glad it went well. And
yeah, and I think like I made this comment earlier today, but I also think like I notice it in the kids at my school as well, but I think kids have like a little sixth sense of when like things are important to the parents, and they're like, I need to be on my best behavior, or like somebody's in the classroom, and like it comes from nowhere. Like nobody's like, hey, like you got to do this, but like kids just kind of pick up on it, and they are on typically they're like on their best behavior. And I thought Winnie and
their baby,
our friend's baby, they both did a great job, and they were like awesome. And we were there for like an hour and a half, and you would think like, oh, like an hour and a half with this newly born baby, like both under like 4 months, 3 months, like, yeah, might have some issues that come about, but no, they were both great and did a good job.
Yeah, so all the credit to them, because that was clearly not anything we did.
Just flip of a coin. Let's see what happens today.
Yeah, well, that was another point that we talked about at brunch today that I thought was perfect, is like, the kids are going to be the kids, and once they're a little older, like, sure, you can kind of behaviorally help teach them things or whatever, but at this age, the baby's going to do what the baby's going to do, and like, so little of it has anything to do with like the things you as a parent are doing, as long as you're responding to their needs and, you know, being a caring, respectful, responding parent. But so we were just laughing at that kind of fact, and I thought that was good. So. Yeah, so please help us welcome our little bundle of joy, our baby girl Winnie. But yeah, that's what we're doing.
All right, deuces.